Connecting the community through gospel. The new 107.9 FM, W300EB, Macon, and WDDO 980 AM, Perry, Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
It is now time for the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwinnett, Westbrook, and Mr. Dumas.
Good afternoon and welcome to another segment of the NAACP Truth Show. I'm Willie Dumas, your host, and joining me today we have Ms. Bryant with us today.
Good afternoon.
She's going to give us some pertinent information. We know that we're in the season of voting. We've been really busy over the last couple of weeks, and now it's down to the wire. Tuesday, you got to go to those polls and place your vote for your candidate. And so we're at that point at this time. And so we've had a lot of things happening, of course, over the weekend. And we did a party to the polls this past weekend. That was a pretty good event. Ms. Bryant was over there with us, and we gave away some food and gave away some good information.
Yes, we
getting
did.
people all excited about voting.
It's time for us. It's time.
It's time to vote. I was DJing. That's the other little pastime that I do. And so I had an opportunity to DJ. We had some food for the people. They were honking horns. We were had the signs going and had a great time. The weather was conducive. We got a little rain towards the end, but for the most part, things went really well.
Right.
And so we're real excited about the voting process. We just hope you are as well. And I know a lot of people have taken advantage of early voting. Early voting ended on Friday. For some folks, it ended on Friday.
And for some folks, they showed up at the polls today, and there's no voting today.
Exactly. And so you gotta pay attention, kind of keep your ears to the ground. Of course, the only day you can vote now will be Election Day. And,
starting at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Voting is from 7 until 7. So make sure you have your voter card so you know where you're supposed to go. And if you can't remember where you're supposed to go to the My MVP page, and it will give you exactly where you're supposed to go. And it's based on what's on that driver's license. If you did not change your driver's license, that means you still have to go to your old polling place. Even though you may have moved to a new neighborhood, you cannot go to the new polling place because they do it based on your address. And if you still have your old address, just go to your old polling place, because provisional ballots are only done at 5 o'clock.
That's correct.
Provisional ballots are done at 5 o'clock. So you need to check and see where you're supposed to go and vote. So get up tonight before you go to bed, check the MVP page and look and see where it tells you you're supposed to go vote. And those of you that have not voted, you didn't vote early or you didn't do your absentees, you need to go and vote at your polling location tomorrow. There's no voting at the Macon Board of Elections on Pine Elm.
Absolutely.
No voting. Now, if you have an absentee application, you can still turn it in. But you would have to take it to the Board of Elections and turn it in, your application, if you still have not turned in your absentees. Because when we looked on the system, there are a lot of people that are still sitting with absentees that have not turned them in. So please turn in your absentee ballots.
And speaking of absentee ballots, I had a few individuals who had some concerns with the ballot. Just let our listening audience know some of the things that some of the key things they need to address on that absentee ballot.
They need to put their driver's license, their ID number. And if you look on the back of there, just put your ID number from your driver's license, or from if you have your driver's license, or if you have a ID card that's for voting purposes. You can't, they were giving out pictured IDs at the Board of Election for voting purposes only. So you need to put that on there. And also, it's your birthday, and you need to make sure you sign it. Be sure you sign it. Then seal it up and turn it in.
And one of the things someone asked me, and at the present moment, I didn't have a whole lot of time to give the attention to it, but they were looking on the application and couldn't really find the address of where they needed to send that ballot.
Well, it's on the gold envelope. If you turn it, that gold, the envelope
it's already on there.
It has the address on there. All you got to do, and it also has your return label already on it. So if you look at it, it has your return label on it, and it has the address of the Board of Elections, which is 2525 Pinona Avenue, and that's where you return it to.
And they could also drop it off, right?
Well, at this point, you have to drop it off.
You have to drop it off, exactly.
Yeah, at this point, we need for you to drop it off and not try to put it in the mail.
Right. Because a lot of people get confused by that. They don't really know that there's a certain time limit or, when it relates to that.
Right.
And so they need to be clear on that.
They need to turn them in today.
And
turn them in. If you can, turn them in today, but you have until 7:00 tomorrow to turn them in.
Absolutely.
But
now I want to throw this out there. If you're out there and you're listening to this program and you have a concern about your ballot, give us a call here at the station. We'd love to kind of help you with that. That number is 478-250-1444. Once again, that's 478-250-1444. And that is if you've had some issues either when you early voted or if you're having issues with your absentee ballots or you have a question. Right. We'd love to hear from you and kind of help you with that, because we are getting down to the wire, and you don't want to wait, until Tuesday and then, really have an issue. So if you got those concerns, call us here at the radio station. We'd love to address that. Also, as it relates to the ballot, you need to know your candidates. A lot of folks, of course, are asking about different candidates and asking about some of the amendments and those kinds of things, and just how they should vote. They should do some research and kind of get a good feel of what they're actually voting for.
Right. And we need people to vote the whole ticket.
Absolutely.
Don't just start at the top and forget the rest of it. You need to vote the entire ballot, because the people at the top will need some help. So you need to vote the entire ballot. Just start from the front. Now, also, just remember, there may be a representative of someone that you wanted to vote for. If they are not, when they did the redistricting, you may no longer be in that district. So don't look for them and if they're not on that ballot, it's because you're no longer in that district. That's why they're not on your ballot. So I know some people will call our office and say, I was supporting so-and-so, I had that sign in my yard, but that person is not, you don't live in that district, so you can't vote for them. So just remember that. That's why they're not showing up on your ballot. And also this reminder, the Water Board, District 2 has is voted, it's a special election, and that should be, if you're in District 2, they will show up on your ballot. If you're not in District 2, don't look for the Water Authority people, because that's not the district you're in. So it's only the people in District 2, and there are 5 candidates that are running for that office in District 2. So just remember that. That's why all of the Water Board is not showing up, because if you don't live in District 2, these people will not be on your ballot. Absolutely.
So, get to know those candidates. I know a lot of the candidates were in town, this week. I know Raphael Warnock, Herschel Walker, also for the governor's race, Stacey Abrams was in town. And I'm sure that Governor Kemp was also making rounds around the state. And so we even have brought out some of the big guns, I understand, in Atlanta and some of those areas. Former President Barack Obama, I believe, was in Atlanta.
Our own president of the NAACP was in Atlanta yesterday.
Absolutely. Just a lot of things going on. a lot of excitement
Mm-hmm.
around this particular election. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of focus on the state of Georgia.
Right. Right.
All across the country, people are trying to see what's going to happen in Georgia.
Right.
And so we should be excited. Having the opportunity, having the constitutional ability to go to the polls and to vote. Our choice.
Right.
And
Right.
so you have to make that choice.
Yeah.
NAACP can't make that choice for you, and
we can't tell you who
we
to vote
can't
for.
tell
The
you
only
who to
thing we
vote
can do
for.
is encourage you to go vote.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit, just get off the voting for just a moment, and talk about the crime.
Right.
Here in Bibb County, we had several homicides over the weekend.
We did.
I think we're up to beyond the number of 60. Are we right at 60?
I think we're right at 60.
Right
there
at
was
60.
3 people killed.
There were 3 people killed.
3 people killed.
Also, you just look at loss of life, period. I think someone was actually ran over near Irwinton Road on a bicycle.
Yep. Sure did.
And it was tragically done in that this person was hit by someone. Right. They were hit at one time, and then another car hit them. So safety, we're getting now where it gets dark.
It gets dark early, so
and
you need to have on some reflectors. You need to have something on besides the dark clothes. Have some lights on your bikes, and have some kind of reflectors that reflect off, so people can be able to see you. And because I know, you might leave home, but if you think about it, at night, people can't see you.
That's right.
If you got on all black and you coming up a dark street, people just can't see you.
I had an incident last week. Gray Highway. There was a gentleman in the turning lane. He was walking, crossing Gray Highway, which is one of the worst streets to try to cross.
Right.
And this was in the night hours. I forgot, probably around 9 or so. And he had on dark clothing, and it looked like a shadow at first, and then all of a sudden, he did stop. He didn't come on across the road. But I thought about that. I said, well, he could have very easily been hit by me, And so we got to practice safety. I understand in Warner Robins at the Walmart, Robins, it was turned out to be a relative of that child. Okay. But I don't care if it's a relative, stranger, whatever. I mean, why are you choking a child?
Right.
It was actually choking the child. And there was a bystander who held him at gunpoint.
Right.
To actually have the police arrive. So these are dangerous times. It's safety is a must.
Right.
Not just for other folk, but for your individual safety. And so I know people now are getting into the festive season as well. We're doing a lot of shopping for Thanksgiving.
Be careful. Make sure you lock your doors.
Absolutely. And for women in particular, you don't need to try to get gasoline at nighttime. That's a big no. People are out approaching you and those kind of things. Because I get approached. And I know as a male, if I get approached, females are probably getting approached just as well.
And I keep walking. I don't, you wave it, but I keep going. And I don't know what you're up to.
And I tell you a good excuse you can use. We're still in a pandemic. And so you just tell the people, hey, I got on a mask, I can't talk.
Right.
Because I think a lot of us have pretty much said that the pandemic's over. I mean, you notice now you don't see as many people wearing masks, and whether that's inside or outside. And
I still wear mine.
And it's good to take those precautions because, every time we look around.
Flu season coming, and this new virus that's coming up, and they're telling people the reason they think flu season will be really hard this year is because of the fact last year everybody was wearing masks. So this year people are not wearing masks. So, you less likely sneezing and whatever. You were real cautious because of COVID. But a lot of people feel that COVID is over, but flu season is coming.
And it's full blast because I know a lot of the daycares, a lot of the young kids are are coming down with the flu. And then,
Right.
of course, kids are at risk for this, what they call this respiratory
Yeah. Right.
virus,
Right. Right.
RSV or
Right.
RVS or something to that
And I
degree.
was looking at the news today, and they said seniors are
Susceptible as
right.
well.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Right.
And so,
So.
there's always precautions
Mm-hmm.
that we need to take
Mm-hmm.
this time of the year in particular, because
Yeah.
it's temperatures changing,
Right. Right.
and you're going from hot to cold.
Right.
And particularly in the state of Georgia, we look today, I guess we're probably faced with what, 80-degree weather, and it's November.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
this change up of going in and out of the air, it causes a lot of illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And we do want you to even be safe as it relates to voting. Now,
Right.
I don't know if there are any particular regulations in regards to masks when it comes to voting. Our people can pretty much go by what the state has already set up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
okay.
Mm-hmm.
But
But
go
if
ahead.
you want to be cautious, wear your mask.
Right,
No one. I mean, people can look at you funny, but
right.
if you want to wear your mask, wear your mask. Don't let anybody intimidate you and tell you can't wear your mask.
The
Just
only
put your mask on.
Right. The only mask you can't wear would be a mask that has some type of political
Right.
statement or
Right.
some
Can't wear a
candidate's
candidate's mask or
or
anything like that. And when you so can't wear that when you go to the polls.
right. And we want people to feel comfortable about
Mhm.
voting. You don't
Right.
want
Right.
anything that would be intimidating to the
Right.
voter,
Right. Right.
because what we've noticed, I know on last voting cycle, a lot of first-time voters,
Right.
they feel, they kind
They
of
are
feel
nervous. They
intimidated
get
and nervous,
intimidated. Hmm.
right?
But
And
you just encourage them, and if you haven't voted and you got family members, take them to the poll with you.
right,
Take 5 people to the poll with you. Take 10 people to the poll with you. Whoever's in your family, make sure all your family members, everybody at your house, make sure they all going to vote.
and what kind of assistance can they inquire when they're voting?
Well, if you're in now, elderly citizens, you go to the front of the line. There's no you don't have to stand in line. You go to the front of the line, and if you're disabled, you go to the front of the line. And all you have to do is let them know, and they have to let you go to the front of the line. So you don't have to stand in the long lines. That's why we always encourage a lot of people with disabilities to do absentee, so you don't have to go stand in long lines. But just remember, you can go up front. All you got to do walk in, and they'll take you in. Also, the the other thing is, a lot of people don't know, if for some chance you get sick and you're in the hospital, you can call the Board of Elections, and they will bring you a ballot in the hospital. But you have to call and request it, and that you wind up in the hospital on election day, and they will bring you a ballot to the hospital for you to fill out. So just remember, don't something happens and you say, "Oh, I'm in the hospital." You call them; they will bring you a ballot so you can vote.
Wonderful.
Hmm.
And, we talked about on a show before, one of the shows we had, where a lot of people that work particular jobs,
Hmm.
and if they could vote early to do so, so
Hmm.
that they don't have the issue, even though they should be able to leave their
Yeah.
jobs to vote.
Hmm.
But a lot of times, it depends.
Yeah.
We find people that say they weren't able to get off to vote,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so
That's why we encourage people to early vote. Because you had 2 Saturdays and a Sunday.
absolutely
So, that was a perfect time for those of you that have those irregular hours to go and vote.
right.
So hopefully you took care of that. But we do have a lot of people in Macon that have not voted. When they were pulling the numbers, we still have over 40 something thousand, well, in African American community that have not voted. So you all need to get out and vote.
Absolutely.
We want everybody to go and vote. Everybody, you need to, let your voice be heard. So go vote and let your voice be heard. Because if you don't vote, you can complain if you want to, but your complaint doesn't help because you didn't do anything to help yourself. So what you need to do is you need to go out and vote. And and if not for yourself, think about if you got children or grandchildren, vote for them. Think about yourself. Like one day you're gonna need your Social Security,
That's
and
right.
you're working now, and like you're in good health, and I'm doing that. But what happens when something changes? So you just need to go out and vote. you know Go out and let your voice be heard. If you want to be heard, go vote.
Absolutely.
That's the
And
way we look at it. If you want to be heard, go vote.
go vote.
Shout to the world, I voted.
Absolutely. And it's it's an exciting thing. It's
Right.
and if it, you got all these conspiracy theories about, your vote doesn't count,
Every vote counts.
every vote counts.
Every vote counts.
And one of the things too that you have to realize is that if it wasn't, if your vote didn't count, there wouldn't be so many things against.
Oh, there's so
you
many
voting.
things. Yeah, there's
You
so
know.
many ways they try to keep people from voting, and just think your vote. Apparently, it must be very, very important for people to go through to spend the money, to put out the negative ads, to put out the negative items, send out negative flyers. They are doing everything to encourage you not to vote. So you just need to let them know, forget you, I am going to vote. I have a voice. And if you want your voice to be heard, you need to go vote.
Absolutely. And one of the things in this particular election cycle that we're asking voters to do, even after we've voted, is to be patient with the process, because you're not going to get those rapid results we used to get years ago, where who, what candidate has won. And so there may be some elections where you may not know the results until maybe the end of the week. We don't know. And so it all depends on how things are going. And we also know that some of the changes in the law, whereas, the election can be challenged.
Right.
And so we don't, when it comes to voting, you don't want it to be a real tight race, because, if they don't get 51% of the vote, then we're looking at runoff.
Right.
And so if that happens to be the case, then the next runoff for Senate would be December. Would it be December?
It would be. I don't have my sheet with me.
It looks like it's the 10th, or I forgot the actual date. If I wasn't on the radio, I would know the actual. I would know the
pull it up,
actual
because
date.
I left my phone in the car, and I normally have it, and I didn't bring that sheet of paper.
I think it's the 20th. I think it would be December 20th.
But if there's a runoff, we need for you to go to the runoff also.
Absolutely.
Because there are 5 people running in the Macon Water Authority District 2.
And so the chance of a runoff are pretty much set in that particular case. And so
because they got to get 50 point plus 1. So
right,
you have 5 people running for that position.
So we've got a lot of work to do.
And plus there are 4 amendments
on
the ballot also. So please make sure you read the amendments. Look at these amendments on the ballot, because there are 4 amendments, and that needs to be you need to, because it's Senate Resolution 134, House Resolution 594, and then we have House Bill 997,
right,
and House Bill 498.
And we kind of want to go through those, because people get confused, and a lot of times we don't really know. No, not everybody is as literate as others, when it comes to reading and understanding and comprehending. And that's why, we were doing our part to try to get information out to the people, so that if you had a loved one that maybe have an issue with reading or whatever, you could actually go over that with them, get them a better understanding. And so we do want to, kind of go over some of those, because sometimes people go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and that doesn't really help. We want folks to be very much assured about what they're voting for. And as that Senate Resolution number 134, it talks about, shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended as to suspend the compensation of governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, state school superintendent, commissioner of insurance, commissioner of agriculture, commissioner of labor, or any member of the General Assembly while such individual is suspended from office following indictment for a felony. And so what that's simply saying is, should they be compensated while they're out of office? And when they're indicted for a felony.
Right.
And so you got to vote yes or no on that.
Right.
And so when things occur, you can kind of get a better feel of how people may have understood, may not have understood what they were actually voting for. And after the fact is not a good time to actually get that clear,
Right.
get that clarity.
Right.
And what's that other one? The local tax relief for disasters.
Right.
We've been having a lot of disasters, tornadoes, hurricanes, and those kinds of things that happen close to us. We know what that's like, to have disasters.
Right.
And so it says, shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to provide that the governing authority of each county, municipality, and consolidated government and the Board of Education of each independent and county school system in this state shall be authorized to grant temporary tax relief to properties within its jurisdiction which are severely damaged or destroyed as a result of a disaster and located within a nationally declared disaster area. And so that, you get to vote yes or no on that. I've had, a little storm damage some years ago. But, when you have a tornado or a hurricane that affects property, that's a very troubling time, because that's your home.
Right.
And, your home is your castle, and you don't want people to forget about you, particularly the federal government. When these things happen, because a lot of times insurance doesn't cover some of those disasters that happen
Right.
to us.
Right.
And so people are like, well, what do you do? Let's see. We had some comments here. I got you. Okay. But yeah, these are very interesting amendments, and so you need to get a real good understanding of those.
Right.
Another one, Bill 997, says talks about an ad valorem tax.
Right.
It says provides for ad valorem tax exemption for certain timber production, reforestation, and harvesting equipment. Okay. Now, I don't have any of those types of equipment at my home. I don't know if you do, but it seems like that would be relating to big companies.
Right.
Okay. And should they provide an ad valorem tax exemption for those timber production, reforestation, and harvesting equipment? So that bill 997, it says, shall the act be approved, which grants a statewide exemption from all ad valorem taxes for certain equipment used by timber producers in the production or harvest of timber. And so, you got to vote on that. Okay.
Right.
And so the last one, this one has to do with House Bill 490, expands ad valorem tax exemption for family-owned and adds qualified products. It says, shall the act be approved, which expands a statewide exemption from an ad valorem tax for agricultural equipment and certain farm products held by certain entities to include entities comprise 2 or more family-owned farm entities, and which adds dairy products and unfertilized eggs of poultry as qualified farm products with respect to such exemption. So that's having to do with farm products that are produced, eggs and those kinds of things. So so read up on those bills before you go in there, and then you'll have, first of all, you can move a lot smoother through the election process.
Plus, you can take your sample ballot. If you have a sample ballot, go ahead and fill it out, and you can take it in there with you when you vote. So that way you won't forget, or you start looking at like I said, when you start looking at the ballot and you don't see somebody's name, that's because you're not in that region. They're not in that district. So that's the problem there. Where that's why if you do a sample ballot, you can take that ballot in with you, and then if even though they're on everybody's name is on the sample ballot, but if that person, if you do not live in that district, then that name will not be on your particular ballot. So
Right.
just be real clear. Their name will not be on your particular ballot because every ballot is based on the district and the area that you live in. That's why it's so important that you make sure if you change your address or whatever, you make sure that you do an address change with the Board of Elections, and then that way you will have the proper ballot. So
Absolutely.
if you did not do that change and you still have the old address and you may be in a new district, but you can't vote for that person in the new district because of the fact that you're still listed at your old address.
Right. Now, when it comes to voting on Tuesday, um, how soon and how late? Because
Voting starts at 7 and ends at 7. And if you're still in line at 7 o'clock, do not get out of line because you have the right to vote. Do not get out of line. Don't think because it's 7 o'clock, but you need to be in line by 7 o'clock. And if you're in line by 7 o'clock, they have to let you vote. Even if they're still there at 10, 11 o'clock and you got a lot of people in line, they still have to let everybody vote.
that's right,
So,
because that can be a deterrent for a
right,
lot of people.
right.
They look at their watch and say, "Well, okay, it's 6:45. By the time I get there, it's going to be 7, and they're going to be closed." So
But if you're out of your district now, this is where you are, you can't do a provision clock. Post things here, the middle of Georgia, like I said, go into the MV, so you won't wind up standing in line maybe at a new location and you're not eligible to vote there yet. So make sure you go and check and look and see where you're supposed to vote. And be prepared. Like I said, do your sample. If you have a sample ballot, do your sample ballot. They do have some inside in there, and you can get your sample ballot if you want to stand there in line and figure out what you want to do. And then once you get over to the polling place, get over to the booth, it won't take you very long. All you got to do is lay your paper there, look at it, and click, 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 and then you're out of there.
absolutely. Now, we know that everybody, probably in the state of Georgia, has a cell phone, and so when they're voting, what
When
are
you
some
walk
of the
in, they tell you
rules
to
with the
turn your cell
phone?
phone off.
Okay.
Yeah, when you come in, they ask you to turn your cell phone off.
So don't walk into the polls,
Talking on
on the phone. It's going to be an issue, and chances are somebody's going to say something to you.
And just turn your phone off, and vote, and then come out, and so you had the opportunity to vote, and
Now, any regularities? I know we have poll monitors,
right.
That are present at most precincts, all precincts. But if an individual is having some type of issue as it relates to voting, and they don't,
There's the 1-866 my vote. If you have an issue, 1-866 my vote, I vote
exactly.
number, and you can call that number and issue your complaints. If you
Right.
have any complaints, you call that number and issue your complaints. And there are attorneys that are sitting there waiting for you to call. And when you call, they'll be able to assist you.
And one of the main things we want to assure voters with is not to be intimidated.
Right.
Don't feel intimidated in the voting process.
First time voters, it's very easy. Don't feel intimidated to go in and to get your vote. Seniors who at this point will have to go in. Like I said, you don't have to stand in line. Elderly people, disabled people, you don't have to stand in line. You just get in line, and when you come in there, just let them know, and they will pull you to the front of the line.
And one of the things you probably won't see at the election process this time because of the new bill. Is you won't see people handing out water
No, no.
in the lines. I'm noticing today, the temperature today.
Take your own.
And right, take you some water, and if you're diabetic,
Make sure you have your medicine.
Yes, and a
Take
snack.
your little snack. If
Right.
you have to stand in line because we don't want you passing out. Especially if you're diabetic and you have to make sure you take your medication and take his water, little crackers or something, so you have something there. You can't take it in the building, but you can put it in your purse or whatever. But just because people can't pass them out to you, not anymore. It's against the law.
Absolutely. And so with those kind of changes,
but look after yourself.
Right.
Make sure you look after yourself. Take your medication and look at the time you have to go. And then in some locations it may be short lines. Some locations it may be long lines. So you just decide. And like I said, the polls open at 7:00. And if you get to a poll and it's not open at 7:00, do not leave. Do not leave. Stay there to vote. Please stay there to vote. Do not leave because there may be technical issues or whatever, but do not leave. Make sure you stay and vote. Don't think you can leave and go to another polling location because provisionals are not accepted until 5:00.
Right. And some of the I want to talk too a little bit about some of the issues we observed, in the last voting cycle. One of them being not enough machines
Right.
in the places or certain precincts where we have large numbers.
Right.
Because over the years they should be able to figure out the number of people that actually vote in those precincts.
Right.
And provide enough machines to keep the flow
right.
Going.
Right.
And so that sends up a red flag for us as monitors to go in a precinct and only see one machine.
One machine working.
One machine
and you got
working.
A long line of people outside the door.
Right.
Then somebody needs to call somebody. Somebody polling people need to say something because there's a lot of people to do with one machine. So, those are some of the things, that poll monitors will be out there monitoring to see if this is going on.
Right.
Because like I said, the polls open at 7:00. Not 8:00, not 9:00. They're supposed to be open, ready to go at 7:00.
And also make sure that they are allowing you to review your ballot.
Right.
Once your ballot is printed out, they should be allowing you to review it to make sure that what you selected on the computer.
You make sure when you walk away from that computer, what you wanted is on that sheet.
Absolutely. And particularly on the printout.
Right. And if that printout is not correct, before you go and put it in that hopper, you need to go to a polling person and say, hey, I made a mistake or something happened before you cast that ballot. Because once you put it in there, that ballot is cast. You can't go back and change. You can't change your mind. But the time to do it is when you're in there and if there's a problem. Because I've worked the polls before and I saw a gentleman did that. He just flat out put the wrong person on there. But before he turned it in, he brought it over to one of the poll workers and told him because he found his own error. And
that's why it's important to review it.
Right,
really,
right. You got to review it. Make sure what you click is on that sheet of paper when you print it out.
Absolutely.
It out, because once it's put in the hopper, it's too late then. Mm-hmm.
Right, because I was watching the CBS News some weeks ago, and of course, all the conspiracy theorists, at one point they were saying that the company that made the machines, had the button, so if you push one candidate, it would actually give you another candidate, and all those kinds of things. So the sure way to avoid all of that is to review that ballot,
your ballot before you cast that ballot. Yeah, you need to review it, and you have a chance to stand there and look at it.
Right.
Like I said, before you walk away from the ballot box, just look at it. Just go up and down, look back and front. I mean, look all the way down and make sure. Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I wanted. And then you can also compare. When you're sitting there looking at it, and you can put it down and look at your sample ballot and see. Okay, that's not what I did. But just as a reminder now. keep reminding people that everybody may not show up on your ballot because you don't live in that district.
Absolutely.
So just remember that.
And so it's just a good
Right.
practice to review it.
Right.
And I know they did have some issues with printout. Sometimes the machine would not print the ballot out, and so that would be a holdup.
Mm-hmm.
With those are some of the technical issues
Right.
that can happen. But
and they have to replace those printers with another one. So that what they do is just have everybody to just stop.
Absolutely.
And then if they have to do something, they just make everybody stop at once, and then they make whatever corrections. Then people go back. So that way you don't have people running around. You don't have people saying, "Oh, they did this, they did that." Usually, in most of the polling managers would ask everybody to just stop where you are.
Absolutely.
And then because I've been there when that happened, and they just had everybody just stop where you are, and we need to make this change, and then that's what they did.
And another issue that sometimes occurs is the card itself, the card that you're given, the little yellow card.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't work properly. And, if you have an issue with that, make sure you talk to someone about it, and so they can correct that.
Yeah, they can make that correction.
Make that change.
Yeah. Just don't turn it in and just say, well, they didn't. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Right. Make sure.
Make sure
everything works the way it should work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that ensures that
that ensures that your vote does count.
Right.
That's why I said every vote matters. Every vote counts. So make sure your vote, what you wanted, is actually what's on that paper.
Right. Now, as far as the people who are there and they have questions prior to voting, who can they go to? Can they go to the person who signed them in, or can they?
They could ask a question. They can't tell you who to vote for or whatever, but if you've got a question, technical question or something, you can ask one of the poll workers. They're there for you to do that. But they can't tell you who to vote for, anything like that. But if there's an issue of something you don't understand, they can review it with you, but they just can't tell you, they can tell you what to do as far as putting in the machine, but they can't tell you who to vote for.
Right. And the reason I brought that up, because sometimes people are so intimidated that they're afraid to ask for assistance or anything like that.
Always ask for assistance. Don't be afraid, because that's what they're there for. So
Absolutely.
They're there to ask to answer any questions that you have.
Right. And also,
and if somebody refuses to answer a question, that's when you call the 1-866 my vote.
Right. One of the issues we ran into, and one of the complaints we had in the last election cycle, we had someone all the way from Atlanta who lived in Macon at one time, and they moved to Atlanta, but they were still their address,
still registered here in Macon.
Still registered in Macon, and they came all the way from Atlanta to vote in Macon.
Well, they had to,
but
they
had issue when they got to their precinct in Macon, and so we had to get that resolved.
Yeah.
Of course, we called the numbers, but what I'm saying is, even though you run into those kinds of situations, you don't just give up and try to rectify it yourself. Kind of ask for help and try to get that resolved if it can be resolved.
Right. That's why it's so important to get that address changed, because see, now you're having to drive all the way from Atlanta to Macon just to vote, or you could have just done an absentee. If you were not going to get but that happens. But at least that person was diligent. They wanted to vote, so they drove back to Macon to vote. But just remember, that's why that address change is so important. And
we do know, young people, we've been, really encouraging young people to vote. Black Voters Matters, along with the NAACP and other organizations, have gone to college campuses and
encouraging the students to vote.
Right. But even in that, a lot of our young folk, when they go off to school, they don't come back home to vote, or they don't register there.
That's why they have to request an absentee. If your child is in school in Washington, D.C., All you have to do is, and they're registered to vote here. All they have to do is send an absentee form for them to fill out, and that ballot would go to them in DC, and then all they have to do is mail it back here, so they could still allowed to vote. So,
Absolutely.
and like you said, some students will register where they are, but some students maintain their home address, so they can still register to vote as an absentee.
Right. And so they need to make, at this hour, of course, it's kind of mute thing, but this is something we want them to be
We need to
educated
encourage them,
on,
yeah.
because, when it comes to voting, you don't want to feel as if you can't vote because you're so far away from home.
Right,
So
right,
there are avenues that alleviate those problems. And
right,
so
right,
we want parents to encourage your teens that are maybe a freshman
right.
in college, that is a viable thing for them to do in order to
And
still
people
be
that travel.
right.
When I worked and I traveled, and there was an election, I'd always do my absentee before I left town because I knew I wouldn't be back in town on election day. So
Absolutely.
even if you travel, you need to do your absentee that way, and then that way your vote counts. So you don't have to worry about trying to rush to get back. And if you know you're not going to be in town, you know you need to make sure you request your absentee, or if you're not, because you may be out of town the whole month doing early voting.
Right.
So you actually need to request an absentee form.
And when it comes to the absentee ballot during the election, when they do the count, those won't be tallied in right away like the regular vote. Isn't it usually a
Yeah.
little time frame? Because it takes time for them to really, I
Because they got to
guess.
open all those envelopes.
Right.
And just remember that if you have to do a provisional ballot, you have
Is it 5?
48. No, you have to that Friday
Right.
to make sure you go in there and make the necessary changes. So I would suggest get in there the next day
Right.
before you get busy and forget about it, and go ahead and make the necessary changes so that ballot will count. Because if you do not go in there and make the necessary corrections, then that doesn't count.
Right.
So it's real important that you make sure, do your due diligence. Make sure you in there doing, and like I said, that's why we preach on the fact that vote early, vote absentee. Make sure you get all your information changed. You make address change. If you get married, divorced, you got a new name, put your new name in. Get all of that done, because you don't want to get to the poll on election
Right.
day and they tell you we can't. No,
Right.
no.
That's
Yeah.
not
Right.
a good thing. And we've had all this time, to deal with those types of issues, to get it right.
Yeah. And that's why we told people, you get the cards in the mail, look at them. And, and if you haven't voted in a while, that's why we tell people to check the MVP page and make sure you're still on the list, because they do purge. If you haven't voted in a while, you may be purged off the list, and you get to the polling location and they tell you you're out because you haven't voted in a while.
Wow. That's a sad commentary.
And I've seen that happen.
Wow.
That the person hadn't voted in 8 years
And so they just showed up
to vote
to vote like wow.
because they said that they thought once they registered to vote, they was registered to vote forever.
If they were voting.
Right. So that's why we need to educate our people. You need to vote in every election. And then that way you don't get taken off the voters roll.
Right, because we don't, you don't want to jeopardize that or take for granted,
Right.
That voting right.
Right.
And so we're encouraging everyone, that hasn't voted already, to show up
at the polls
Tuesday
7:00
to 7.
to 7.
And
Show up, come, be prepared. You may have to stand on the line. We're not sure. But, just make sure you get to your polling and try to make sure you go to your correct polling location. Like I said, after 5 o'clock is when they start doing provisionals, because they are encouraging people to go to your polling location.
right. Now, the Board of Elections, are they open today?
Board of Election is open, and they're open tomorrow, but there's no voting at the Board of Election.
Exactly.
Because today I saw a lot of people I went to the board of elections, and there were people up there. I just went to see, and there were people standing up there in line. There were people up there like, I come to vote, and I was looking at them like,
No, you can't.
no, and
Vote at
and
the
they were
border.
telling them you're gonna have to go to your polling location. And I heard one person say, "Well, where is that?" So they explained to them and told them where the polling location is. But that's why it's so important to keep those cards when they send them to you, or else go to my voter page, and it will give you all the information. You click on it, it tells you when you go in there, it tells you exactly where you go to vote at. So,
So we've
mhm,
we've eliminated a lot of the barriers,
mhm,
as far as getting the information of where you need to go, because
right,
that can be a very confusing thing.
right, right,
When
right.
you go to one precinct and they say
Mm-hmm.
you're not
Then you
here.
got to figure out the other precinct, and then they tell you which precinct to go to, and people are like, "Well, I just went over there," and I know when I did the worked at the polls, people was confusing between Beulah and Beulah Land,
Wow.
and there were people who came and stood in line,
Oh my
and they was like, "You're
goodness.
supposed to be at Beulah." And that's why it's important to read, look at it, and it has the address on there.
Wow.
So
Yeah, just don't assume
yeah, and then you
anything.
go stand in line for nothing, and then you got to still get out of line and go to your regular polling place.
Wow.
So that's why we encourage people to read and double check, and like I said, do it tonight, because you got to go vote tomorrow.
That's
So
right.
go ahead and write it down on a little piece of paper, put it in your phone. This is where I go vote at tomorrow. So you won't have to you won't get confused.
Right.
Hmm.
And the push,
Hmm.
it's not like people haven't known to go vote,
Right, right,
to vote early in particular, because there's been a great push,
right,
by this organization, Black Voters
right,
Matters, A. Philip Randolph, a lot of
right.
those organizations, they've
For
been
people to get out and vote,
really
and we just encouraging people, please go out and vote your choice. Please go out and vote. You know, and it's very important. And these are critical times that we're in, and there's a lot of changes that they want to make. And you know, all these people have these different things they want to do. So if you don't want certain things to happen, you need to go out and vote and
right.
vote your choice.
And one of the good things
Mm-hmm.
about election day in
Mm-hmm.
particular is after election, that all those commercials, a lot of them will, a lot of those commercial ads will fade unless there's a runoff.
Yeah,
Now, yeah, of course, if there's a runoff, those will
those
continue,
people will
of course.
continue. The ones that's on the runoff.
But there is some light at the end of the tunnel if people go out and vote
That's true.
and they get the numbers that are needed for their candidate to win,
That's true.
and it's sort of relief,
Right.
to get through all of that.
So just remember this on your sample ballot. We're starting from the top and go all the way down, and make sure and we encouraging people vote the entire ballot, vote the entire ticket. Don't just vote. Just some people will come in and vote at the top two, or vote for the governor and leave the rest of it off. No, you need to vote the entire ballot. Be a
Absolutely.
good citizen and vote the entire ballot. And those of you that are in uh, the Water Authority District 2, you have 5 candidates to choose from. But you just vote for one now. Just vote for one. But you have 5 candidates that are vying for the Macon Water Authority District 2 position. So just remember that. And that's for people who live in District 2 only.
Right.
Those are the only people where you will see the water authority. You may have seen some signs in other areas, but this is for people who are in District 2 only. So
You,
please make sure you go out and vote.
and on the ballot, one of the things we don't talk a whole lot about, maybe
Mm-hmm.
we can talk more about it on the next election cycle,
Mm-hmm.
is the write-in
Yeah.
candidates. The write-in
Mm-hmm.
candidates. That process itself is a little longer, can be a little confusing
Mm-hmm.
for the
Mm-hmm.
voter.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, and in many cases, people, ask about, write-in candidates.
Mm-hmm.
But chances are, if you haven't been following, that candidate, why would you do a write-in? anyway, you would have that information at your disposal. It would seem,
Yeah.
if that was your choice, but
Some
that's
people
something.
just not happy with any of the
Either can
choices, so they write their own in.
interesting,
Mhm.
interesting. But we do want you to vote.
Mhm.
Vote for your candidate.
Right.
And I hope all. It's not like they haven't had opportunities to hear.
Right.
There have been a number of forums all across the
Right.
state, and candidates have.
And if you go out on YouTube and then
Right.
you can Google some of the candidates of what they had, and even the debates may be still out there. If you just still not sure at this point, but we hope everybody is sure, and we want encouraging everybody to please go out and vote.
Absolutely.
Please go vote.
Well, Maria, we thank you for coming on today, and
Mhm.
you usually cover everything as it relates to voting, and we certainly hope our listeners will go out and vote.
Right.
If you notice, I've got on a gold jersey representing Fort Valley State University, just celebrating HBCUs. I think it's HBCU month,
Mhm.
and so I wore my jersey representing my alumni,
Oh,
and
okay.
also I want to put in a little
Win
shout.
Saturday.
We won against Albany.
Oh, okay.
And so, good time for my alma mater.
Okay. All righty.
So we thank our listening audience for tuning in today. We hope that information we have given you be helpful in your voting process. If you haven't already voted, there have been a number of people that have voted already.
26,000, I believe.
Absolutely.
Voted. Mhm.
So,
But we have 117,000 people registered that
wow.
are eligible to vote.
Right.
So we're a long way
From
from
getting that
number.
true number.
Mhm.
So maybe you're out there getting ready for Tuesday, and
Mhm.
so we hope that's the case, and we hope you'll exercise your right to vote.
Right. Right.
And so from the NAACP Truth Show, I'm Willie Dumas, your host, along with Maria Bryant, in the absence of our president, President Gwendolyn Westbrooks.
Mhm.
Hope you have a safe
Oh,
evening.
I forgot.
Yes, go ahead.
The NAACP will be providing rides to the polls. And if you call our number, it's 478-745-9944. So if you need a ride to the poll, there are a lot of people
Absolutely.
have rides to the poll. I didn't bring my list, but there are a lot of people that have rides to the poll. So if you need a ride to the poll tomorrow, call those numbers. You can call the Board of Election. The Board of Election has a list of those numbers. Those numbers will be out there on Facebook. And I know a lot of people on Facebook, the numbers are put out there, and there's a chart out there on Facebook telling people who to call if you need a ride to the poll. So if you need a ride to the poll, you can call the NAACP at 478-745-9944.
All right. Thank you. Until next time, I'm Willie Dumas, signing off.
Oh, thank you.
You have been listening to the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwinnett Westbrook and Mr. Dumas. Come join us next Monday at 4 o'clock p.m. on 980 WDDO.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
Go to church. Come.